Welcome to a peek inside SEC football. It is another Monday where, unfortunately, I get to cry about my team not winning. But we have so many good SEC games to talk about that happened last weekend, even more that happened this upcoming weekend. TJ, I know you're happy. Your team won yet again, although their opponent was Kent State. So, to be fair, a team coached by me probably would have won. Will, you are probably crying into your coffee, as I am.
Definitely a little bit. It's starting to get hard to find things to be happy about this team.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think I'm happy we're going to be getting a new coach at some point, so I can find joy in that. Um, TJ, Florida State stuck with Norvell last year after that 2-10 season, and part of that had to do with the fact that his contract was just so big that like there really wasn't an out. So maybe you didn't go through the grief process that we're currently going through because you just resigned yourself to the fact that like he was coming back this year. But that ended up being a decently good decision for him.
Yeah, I think what made it so tough on Florida State was one, the buyout. Two, like he had at least shown something at some points, like over full seasons, right? Florida State won 10 games and then 13 games. And I know like ACC schedule versus whatever, right? Like they at least look competent. Even that year prior, they finished 2021 after starting 0-4, they finished 5-3, and their three losses were they were an underdog in each game. They lost to NC State as an underdog, they lost to Clemson as an underdog, and they lost to Florida. But they beat Miami. They had a couple of upsets. So like there was some upward trajectory there. They had two really good years. I mean, the difference is like, I don't know, maybe it was more depressing because you knew Norvell was coming back either way. At least for Florida, like it feels like, all right, well, at least we'll get to hit the reset button. It just sucks, I guess, that it's this early in the year, right? Yeah. Like if they had like, I mean, just beaten USF. But if they had beaten USF and then played close with LSU and played close with Miami, I mean, those are top 5 teams, and then you'd have a little bit of hope.
Still
like, hey, we could
feel like we got a shot here.
Yeah, like we could beat Texas at home. They don't look very good. And so if you'd done that, then you're above 500. I mean, you've got to, but now you're just looking at it and you're like, man, we're way too far down the rabbit hole. And so, I mean, that sucks when it happens in September. It is what happened to FSU last year. So I'm very well familiar with it. But yeah, like you get so excited for 9 months for a football season to be back. And then it's over in September and you're just like, well, fortunately for Florida fans, like when's basketball start?
Well, let's recap that Miami-Florida game a little bit. Miami did win 26-7. I will remind you that I picked 21-10, so I feel like I was decently close.
This isn't horseshoes.
What?
This isn't horseshoes.
I mean, horseshoes, hand grenades, and football games. They're all right the same. I was the closest, and they had a garbage touchdown at the end there, so it would have been even closer if not. But, Will, let me know what you saw. I am so tired of Florida looking unprepared for the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I saw just an offense that is just not good. There's no other way to put it. Like it's just a really bad offense because second half you had that really one good drive, but that was it. There was really nothing else outside of that one touchdown drive. Just 7 points in the game against anybody. Miami's got a great defense, but with the offense that Florida has, 7 points in the game is just inexcusable. Well, and there were a few specific moments that I got like really frustrated with what the play calling was. It was a 3rd and 1 with about 12 minutes left, 13-7 at this point. They run Jaden Ball right up the middle. Everybody, and also I think my dog knew it. He texted me afterwards. He knew that play call was coming. Like just predictability of the play calling it's really bad. But on the other end of that, on one of the 4th downs, the play was run up for TJ Abrams, who I think he could be a great player. Yeah, he has not been in the game. Aiden Mizell, he must have been a scratch or something because he didn't have his helmet. But I mean, for whatever reason, like, why is that ball going to TJ Abrams in that spot?
Right.
It's just so
you don't
weird.
Trust him during any other part of the game, but you're going to rely on him to essentially continue your hopes of winning. There was another 3rd down where they threw it short of the sticks, which seems to be a common theme with Napier's teams. But I don't understand the concept of we're going to put the ball in a place that even if it's caught, we have to rely on our players to then make a play in addition to the original catch. Like, why are we not drawing them up so that if they do their job, which is catch the ball, they've already gotten the 1st down? It doesn't make any sense to me. That's where I would have maybe taken a shot downfield, honestly. And Will Miles wrote a really great piece that's out today that talks about essentially that like sometimes those are not to get the down, it's actually to win the game. And that's what forcing it down, throwing the ball downfield, forcing them to have to defend both fronts can actually help you in the long run. You mentioned that touchdown though, and Napier even said in his press conference, it was scripted. So, and we didn't this game, but we do tend to do decently well with the scripted plays going into most games. It's usually, the first series and a half, something like that is scripted, and Florida tends to do well. They didn't do well the first series against Miami, but they did coming out of halftime. But again, it was scripted. So it's not like they really actually made adjustments that worked. They scripted a good few plays that did result in a touchdown, but then they reverted back to what we had seen all along. I took some issue with some of the stuff he said in the post-game press conference. I know you all are shocked. But one of the things he said was that the first half was on the offense and the defense, and that the offense couldn't stay on the field, but the defense couldn't get off the field. Did anybody else view it that way?
No, I did not.
TJ, I mean, you watched this game. We were texting each other. You were driving home from Tallahassee, I think, right?
Yeah, and I actually didn't watch the post-game press conference. Interesting note. I was texting Allie about this. Yeah, Florida hasn't uploaded the last two, which I get it. But Florida State turned the comments off of theirs last year, which I get that too. But to not even upload it, I'm like driving home, like, come on, man, give me something to do. I got an hour to go.
And the writers put out the transcript of it to be able to read it, because shockingly we couldn't find it.
So yeah, I don't know, man. They're just grasping at straws. I mean, he's just grasping at straws. He knows absent the most miraculous turnaround that we've ever seen in season. I don't even know. He's never been very good at the press conferences. And so certainly don't expect that to just change when they're 1-3 with the gauntlet of a schedule ahead of them, where even Kentucky and Mississippi State look tough now. So I'm not even surprised. I'm not surprised at all. He's always been bad at it. And start out 1-3 and it gets even worse.
It just bothered me because I feel like that's not giving credit where credit is due. That defense was incredibly stout, really until the very end, when I think they were just absolutely toast at that point, and they did, give up some runs to Miami. But
I'll say this too, Florida's offense is a complete mess right now, and they're just. Yeah, they just have no clue which direct. I don't even know if they know which end zone they're heading towards unless you script it. But Miami's defense is probably Miami is really good. I think they're the best team in the country right now, and they've certainly been the most impressive team in the country. When you think, well, Ohio State won it last year, sure, but all they've done is beaten an overrated Texas team and no one else. And so, yeah, Miami's defensive line to me is the best in the country, which makes everything tough, right? If Miami's secondary was just super shut down, then Florida could do other things. But the mix of Florida's offense being completely lost and Miami's defense maybe being and their defensive line causing I will say, as much as it pains me, this wasn't all on Florida. Miami is really good.
But honestly, I didn't leave that game thinking that they were the best team in the country. Now, I do think that they have the best trenches in the country, and trenches win football games. And so in that aspect, but I've never been impressed with Carson Beck. I haven't been impressed with Carson Beck when he played for Georgia. I didn't think he was particularly good the other night. In our house, there's an adjective, or I guess it's a verb, not an adjective. That there's going to he's going to back it up at some point. And he did. We saw the interception that happened. You knew that was coming. I don't know if I text my brother. I want to say, I was thinking maybe it was you, TJ, but my brother, and said somebody better jump these routes, because every one of them is short. They'll get an interception, and then 30 seconds later is when Cormani McLean did that. I don't think Miami's offense is overly impressive. I think their offensive line is really good, and I think their tailbacks are good, and so that is helpful. But I don't know. I think Florida's just trash.
Yeah. Miami's offense looked pretty pedestrian. But again, I'm a massive shout out to Florida's defense. I don't know how they keep doing it mentally. I don't know how or physically, right? Because did Miami run 72 plays and Florida ran 50 something. So they were out there a lot more too.
And you think of the starters that Florida was missing too.
Yeah, 4 guys missing on the defensive line. They lost Johnson, right, during the game out of the secondary too. Like the fact that Florida's for all the crap we give Billy, like the fact that he still inspires them to play hard and not quit. Because I'm telling you, most teams in the country would have quit in the second half, and Miami would have won that thing by 30. Not even because they were great, but just because the other team's like, screw this, man. The fact that Florida's defense continues to show up, and shoot, I think Florida's defense is top 10 in the country. The problem is their offense is playing like bottom 10 right now. That is really impressive to me. And I think that's why Miami, again, I think Beck has his highs and lows for sure. But that's why I think Miami struggled a little bit, because Florida's defense, and again, credit to them, is really good and, ultimately being wasted right now.
Will, did you see DJ Lagway's comments from after the game?
I did. And that would have been decently inspiring 2 weeks ago after they lost to USF. It feels like empty calories at this point, either you're 1-3. Because after that USF game, it was a lot of just kind of like, random, like, we're going to get back to work, going to be better. Then he kind of gave his speech after this last game, but it feels like it's too late. Like, this is fire that I wanted to see earlier.
I'm going to read it to you guys just so you know what we're talking about. He said, "Let me tell y'all something. We're going to get things changed for sure. I guarantee that. I can guarantee that. This is not acceptable at all. I'm not going to sit here and lie to y'all and make this seem like this is okay. This isn't okay. We've got to play better football, and it starts with me. I'm the head of it. I'm going to start with it. I'm going to demand greatness from everybody. We're done playing around stuff. It's with the playing around stuff. It's time to get serious, and it starts with me. I've got to set the tempo. I've got to set the tone in practice, in meetings, around the building, everywhere. I know for a fact it's going to change because it's going to start with me." So we've already commented on how Florida's pretty horrific in the PR department. But this does feel like too little too late. I think he was looking for his Tim Tebow moment.
Yeah.
The promise. But such a different set of scenarios going on for this. And I guess at this point, 3 losses in a row in, I'm sitting here saying, why did it take 3 losses for you to stop the playing around stuff, like your words? I don't know. I maybe would have come out after LIU when he really didn't have a good game and said that then. If you lose to USF, I guess maybe it's, then you can say it then, right? If you're going to turn it around because you were kind of shell-shocked by a team that you shouldn't have lost to. But like at this point, it feels like, I don't know, too little too late. What do you think, TJ?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think kind of the same as the Napier thing. They're just grasping at straws, right? Like trying to say things to keep team, to let the fan base know that they're still invested, motivated, all those, not rumors, but just kind of like speculation of like, man, would it be better for Lagway to just redshirt, not play the rest of the year? Maybe he's just trying to let people know that he's invested. But again, when there's not good leadership at the top, and that's kind of I'll say like that halfway, because I do think Napier does a lot of things really well. When there's not good leadership at the top, obviously, the entire Lagway offseason was mismanaged and mishandled by God knows how many people. But I think he's just trying to say something, and the PR. It doesn't help anything. It's not going to make make things better. But I mean, I think he's just a young 19-year-old, 20-year-old just trying to make it better. But yeah, I mean, read the room a little bit and just say, man, this sucks. We'll do our best to get better through the bye week. But I also just think like he's just trying to say anything he can. He looks lost on the sideline though. They can't. I try not to read so much, but like the body language, the sitting there like looking shell shocked. Florida didn't. Their offense didn't even look like they looked like they just had to play. Like they didn't even really care. I mean, the defense again, really really good, but yeah, they're a total mess on that side, and he's unfortunately a big part of it.
Yeah, to your point, TJ, like if he wanted to say that to try and show everybody that they were still invested, they can show that by competing when they're on the football field. Like Herbstreit kind of nailed it on that broadcast, saying how no one on the offense is competing. The defense has those guys, but the offense really has no fire, no instinct. Like that is totally accurate to what's going on right now. So you can say all you want in the post-game presser, but then if you line up against other 11 guys and you can't do anything, it doesn't really mean anything.
Sure.
Chris Doring actually said on SEC Final, I texted him because it was hysterical, but also incredibly accurate. He said Florida's offense has low T. He's like, there's no aggression, there's no fun, there's no emotion, and they can't score. And yeah. I mean, accurate. That is like, that's exactly what we're looking at. And I guess Gator fans are wondering, and I know they think the long-term fix is a new coach, and that might very well be what happens in the next few weeks here. But Florida's still got to play football, whether regardless of who the head coach is. And Billy Napier is the head coach for this Texas game. Like that I'm pretty confident in. So what can they do to turn things around in the next 2 weeks and put a better product on the field?
Pray.
I mean, I really wish I had a better answer than I don't know. But I mean, I think it starts with the defense staying focused, because being that unit of the ball, that side of the ball, excuse me. Whoa. But just like with the offense being as poor as it is and the defense playing as good as it is, it feels like it can be really, really hard to keep going out there doing what you're doing every week, knowing that, we have to hold this team to 6 if we want to win. So really, it started with the mental war, really on both sides. And then just, can the offense start getting to 17 points a game? Like, because all you have to do is win at least 3 games so that you don't go 2-10 after Florida State just did. But it's not going to be easy.
I'd say they got to go against two. Well, Texas A&M's not as good for sure, but with all of Texas's struggles, they've got to go against another really good defensive line. Like Miami's might be the best in the country or top 5 or whatever. Texas is up there too. And I understand playing at home will be a little bit different. They'll be coming off a bye week, all those things. But you thought it was tough to run against Miami. It doesn't get much easier in a couple of weeks. Like Colin Simmons, those guys, like that's still really tough. It lightens up a little bit, I think, when you get to A&M. But if you take another loss to Texas, like, where's the mindset? Where have you, like, if you couldn't fix it there, are you going to go on the road in Kyle Station and win? So I don't know, man. It's very daunting there. But I mean, you mentioned the defense. I mean, you got to be able to run the ball a little bit more. You got to take some pressure off Lagway, and then all the other things too. He's got to be able to see things better. They've got to call a better game. Wide receivers have to help him out some. There's a million problems. And so you ask, how do you fix it? Well, I don't know, man. You start with the most obvious ones. You got to play defense and run the ball. And that's a tough ask against Texas, right? Yeah, I'm not super worried about Texas offense and them flexing on Sam Houston State. But I do think that, if you're not able to run the ball, it doesn't matter how bad Arch is. He'll beat you 17-10, and that's fine. They'll get out with a win. So that is something that I think is, it's going to be a challenge when we preview this game next week is, are they able to run the ball at all and do it with any kind of consistency?
So we've had a lot of discussions in our house with the former player that I'm married to and what he thinks the problem is. And he is convinced that Florida's problems stem from not having competitive enough practices, because he's like, there's 0% chance that they're running plays in games that aren't working in practice. And he's like, and that's also why they look shell-shocked that, like, wait, we ran this 15 times last week and it worked every single time. Why is it not working now? And he's like, because the guy on the other side of the line wants to kill you. And if you're not practicing at a higher clip than that, you aren't actually getting reps that are worth a damn. And so he is 100% convinced that is where Florida's problems stem from, that these things do work in practice. These coaches don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want this to look like a train wreck. And so there's no way they're putting product out that wasn't successful in practice, that they didn't see a positive outcome with in practices. But if all of your practices are half effort, then you aren't getting a true test of whether or not those plays are going to be successful. And I think that's an interesting thought process. And it kind of goes back to last year when Napier said, people were asking him about the turnaround. And he said, well, we made practices competitive, which I know every former player, on Earth's head exploded when that was said, because they should have been competitive always. But that does make me wonder, did we revert back? We thought like, okay, we got them to understand what it's like, so now we can dial it back a little bit because they've gotten it, they get it, instead of these practices must remain violent, aggressive, competitive for us to have a chance in a violent, aggressive, and competitive game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The only thing that, not to play devil's advocate, but the only thing is, like, you hear like these guys like Pate and stuff go, and when they do like their campus tours, they never mention any of that. They talk about like how it looks like Pate has said back-to-back off seasons, and he obviously, I mean, he's even said like he likes Billy and he wants things to work well for them because he's a good guy and all this stuff. But when he talks about how like inside the facility, it looks like, and I don't know how many practices he's seeing, but he talks about how it looks like a real SEC program. The results aren't there on the field, but Sunday through Friday or whatever, it looks real. And he hasn't gone into like the intensity of practice specifically. So I don't want to put words in his mouth and say that he said that. Yeah. But I would think that if that was a concern of his or something that he was hearing, like, so I don't know, man. I don't know if they just like lose everything once they get there. We had a comment or a question just about Lagway. Again, him not being there obviously is paying, is much worse for Florida than we ever could have imagined it was. So I don't know, man. Like there's obviously something broken, and I don't think it gets fixed until they replace him at the end of the day.
Yeah, TJ, you brought up Page. Just one more thing. Like he was on, I forget what show it was this past week or something, but he really compared Florida to like, it's the week of Thanksgiving. You go out, you get every groceries, you get all this silverware, everything is prepared perfectly, and then all of a sudden nobody knows how to cook the food, so everything's ruined. He that's how we compared the Florida program. So just something just seems like fundamentally wrong to where you can do everything right for 6 days, but the second that you have to execute and actually get something done, just nobody's really prepared to do that.
Yeah. On SEC Final, one of the things I want to say was Ben Watson, but had said was that he wasn't sure if it was play calling, communication, or practice, but he was convinced that one of those three things were broken. But buddy, all three of those things fall on one person. Mm-hmm. And that would be, William Napier at the University of Florida. So regardless of what the issue is, whether it's practice, whether it's, communication, whether it's, who knows, intensity, regardless of what it is, that all comes from the top. And that's who's held responsible, particularly in year 4. Well, we could talk about Florida football all day long and all of their woes, but we're not, because this is an SEC channel and there are so many other games that we want to get to. Guys, Oklahoma and Auburn was so fun. I don't know if it's a real SEC game if there doesn't have to be a statement put out by the commissioner to clarify things at the end. Will, walk us through this one. This was, we referred to it as the Jackson Arnold Bowl in our preview last week. And I mean, he got quite the welcome in Norman.
He did. Yeah. I was actually really, really impressed with both teams, especially defensively, because on third downs, Auburn was 3 for 15. Oklahoma was 3 for 12. Auburn had 1.9 yards per carry. Oklahoma had 1.2. Now you could look at that and say, these offenses are terrible. This is a boring game, but they have data points against better teams where we know the offenses are not bad units. I think it was just a really good showing from both defenses. I mean, Oklahoma had 10 sacks and 14 TFLs. Jackson Arnold is not going to play a game in Norman ever again, because every time he goes there, he gets lit up. Mason Thomas for Oklahoma missed the first half, still had 2 sacks in the second half. Mateer looked good. Isaiah Satania looked great catching the ball, and we'll talk about that officiating play in a second here. But just Jackson Arnold, I thought he played pretty well. 3 for 220 and a touchdown. He ran the ball pretty well when he wasn't getting sacked. He had that clutch fourth down scramble. Just got totally murdered. I thought Cam Coleman looked really, really good. Auburn only got 1 sack. So when the sack disparity is 9 between two teams, it's pretty hard to win a game for the team that only has 1 sack. But I was really impressed with both defenses. I thought that Oklahoma, with that last drive to go up in the fourth quarter, was really impressive. So I was high on both these teams over the summer, and I feel like both of them prove they can go win a lot of games this weekend.
So interestingly enough, the call that wasn't essentially may have been the difference in this game. Okay, so let's walk through this, TJ. Touchdown catch by Isaiah. What is his last name? Satanga. Yeah. Okay, but essentially he looks like he's running off the field, but he doesn't. He stays on the field. It's a deception tactic is what it was, but it was not called during the game. SEC has come out since then and said this should have been a 15-yard penalty. This was not officiated correctly, but it resulted in a touchdown. But then today, Oklahoma came out and said, or I guess I don't know if they've officially said this or if it's just been leaked through their beat guys, but Oklahoma is saying that they ran this by an officiating crew, this particular play, to make sure it was legal, and was told that it was. So kind of an interesting turn of events there. And I mean, we haven't even touched the scoop and score yet either. But TJ, how did you see this play out?
So they ran it by a crew, right? Or at least that's the story. I don't think they ran it by the crew I assume they didn't run it by the crew that was, or maybe they did.
Like during practice. What I read made it seem like during practice, they ran this by an officiating crew, which is not an uncommon thing if you are going to be running some trickery.
This is much different than SEC level football. I understand. But I even remember playing like middle school and high school. And when we would have kind of a tricky thing like this, we would tell the refs of that game beforehand. Like we had to play, it's the same BS. Like where we would, I was the center, where we would literally hand the ball to the quarterback and he'd be motioning to the coach like, oh, it's flat, it's flat. And then once he's walking to the sideline, like just take off running, right? Like just stupid trick stuff when you're in middle school. First of all, Oklahoma needing to run this to win this game is probably another conversation we should have. But we would talk to, like, our coach would talk to the ref before and say, hey, we're going to do this just so you don't like blow it dead. Like this is a trick.
What if Oklahoma did because it wasn't called?
Then it's a complete ineptitude failure from the officiating level to the conference level for there to be because the SEC came out and said this was done improperly. And so I watched again, not to give him, to steal everything from him, but I watched Pate last night. He said like the fact that they came out and said, oh, we're going to handle this internally, like they're Nick Saban or something, right? Like at Alabama, when a player gets a DUI, maybe I should say Kirby for that. But that's ridiculous. If you have a call that impacts the game. Now, I will say this. I think ultimately Oklahoma was going to find a way to win this game either way. So maybe it impacted the game, maybe the result, maybe it doesn't. But when you have a call like this and you're so drastically wrong, which maybe they did ask the refs, maybe they didn't, whatever, they clearly missed it. And the SEC literally says this is wrong. I don't know. It's a complete ineptitude of the way that our sport is officiated. And it happens all the time. Not to go back to this, Kirk and Chris were shocked at the way that whistle. Why was that whistle blown early in the Miami-Florida game?
That was wild.
That was terrible too. And good thing for Florida because that'll put Miami up 20-0, and then maybe the dam does break and it doesn't ever get back to where it was somewhat respectable.
That was crazy.
But man, just week after week, we see things like this. And, I don't think I'm not big on the whole conspiracy thing or anything like that. I just think guys, blow stuff and miss it, but there's no accountability for it. And there won't be, right? Like we'll just move on. We'll talk about it here and then we'll move on to who, Auburn plays A&M next week, right? Like, so let's get going on that. So I don't know, but it is a complete failure. And I don't know if there's a way to fix it because every conference wants to do their own thing. And so you're not going to have, it's not like the NFL where it's a uniform set of refs for everybody. You're never going to get that in college football, I wouldn't think. And so, we'll just complain about it every couple of weeks when it happens.
I've got a little breaking news in the side here. Liquid Flames said that per Chris Lowe of On 3, which I just
we can add that to the end for sure.
Yeah, we have some intel on annual opponents. So once we recap these games, we'll get to that for sure. Definitely interesting. But okay, so I walked away from this game thinking both of these teams are really good, and neither one had a great season last year. So this was a pretty impressive turnaround for both of them. So I know we have as Oklahoma a real SEC competitor as our banner, but I would almost add, are both of them real SEC competitors this year?
I would say they both are. I mean, I've talked about Oklahoma enough for anybody to ever talk about one team, but I mean,
you love Mateer.
But I mean, for Auburn, their defense was my question going into this game. Mainly their secondary, they played pretty good. Like they held Mateer to a reasonable number. So that defense feels like it's really coming along. And we talked about like all the officiating and everything. They still went down in the fourth quarter and took the lead. Like the team fought through what was a lot that was stacked against them, took the lead on the road and just couldn't close it out because Oklahoma at the end of the day was the better team. But I thought they both looked really good because Auburn being able to fight through what was that adversity a little bit and still take the lead at the end, and Oklahoma going down and getting a drive in clutch time and then a stop. Like they both did everything right. It's just, one team had to lose, but it was a really good game for sure.
TJ, any final thoughts on that game before we move on to some of our previews?
Yeah, John Mateer, It should be the Heisman right now. Well, actually, I think Ruben Bain should, but it's a quarterback award at this point, so that's not going to happen. But yeah, his moxie and just the way he plays, like he fits kind of that Baker mold of a quarterback that can be successful at Oklahoma. And he's really fun to watch. And he didn't have his best game, but when it mattered the most, he went in and got the touchdown for the win. And he's so much fun to watch. And I was high on him before the season started, and I'm just as high now. Oklahoma's just got an incredibly difficult schedule. I mean, we talk about Florida's, which has gotten tougher for sure, with Tennessee and Florida State being better, Mississippi State being better. But Oklahoma has a 4 or 5 game stretch here where they could lose everything. You know, at the same time, they could certainly win them, but it is incredibly difficult to try and figure out how their season will go. But I know that Material will have them in every single game. Auburn, again, somewhat impressive. They just can't lose this next one to A&M, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But that if they lose that one, then you're just kind of like, man, you're up against the 8 ball. But they looked pretty impressive too.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Jackson Arnold move benefited all parties. Matier crushing it, but Arnold has found his spot at Auburn. It was an exciting one. These are the games that when we say the SEC beats up on each other week in and week out, and you can't look at records because the competition that they're playing each and every week is elevated compared to other conferences. This game is exactly what we're talking about. And there's a whole nother slate of SEC games coming up this week that are the same type of games. And Auburn gets no days off because they play Texas A&M this week, who is very good. I mean, I think that there is maybe the upper echelon of the SEC this year. And I don't know that I'd put Texas A&M in that, but they're right below it. Like if this is tier 1, they're absolutely in tier 2. Beat Notre Dame. And really are putting together a nice season. Is this a sneaky good game, Will?
I think it definitely is. So, I mean, A&M's favored by about 7.5. Auburn's coming off that physical and emotional war at Oklahoma. A&M's coming off a bye. But Aggies have had 2 weeks to hear all the rat poison about how good they are, how they finally gotten over the hump. But what do we really know about them, especially on defense? They gave up 40 to Notre Dame, 20 to their bad opponents. Auburn's got definitely a better passing attack than Notre Dame does. They probably have a bit worse of a running game. But, I mean, offense pound for pound, I'm not sure there's that big of a disparity because Notre Dame threw for 293 against the Aggies. I think Auburn could do a similar thing, maybe even more so, because Auburn threw for 287 on Oklahoma while getting sacked 10 times and pressured everywhere. So I think that Arnold and Auburn's offense is going to have a pretty good time throwing the ball around. And we saw A&M's offense on the road at Notre Dame. They put up 41. Like these are 2 surprisingly good offenses, I think, that are going head to head. So I think there'll be a lot more fireworks in this one than Auburn versus Texas A&M generally profiles as.
Has Texas A&M scored 40 points in every one of the games that they've played so far this season?
I think so. I can fact it, but I mean, I believe they have.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that is incredibly impressive. That offense is cooking. But you're right, defense is the question, and I think that Auburn can put up points. They've shown us that. So, what matchup is most intriguing to you, TJ, in this one?
I mean, I want to see if Auburn can run the ball. Their defense impressed me a little bit more against Oklahoma than I thought it would, especially going on the road. Now they got to go on the road again, back-to-back weeks against another tough opponent. But can they run the ball more effectively? And whether that's with Arnold, like some of those sacks were, quarterback, kind of designed RPO type runs that they weren't as bad. But I was high on Auburn's offensive line, and so want to see if they can run the ball more effectively. The Texas A&M front is not as good as Oklahoma's, but it's still not bad by any means. Oklahoma's got a really nice defense overall and a really nice defensive front. But if they can run the ball a little bit better, shorten this game, not let A&M get into the 40s, right? Less possessions, that'll go a long way. And it takes some of the pressure off of Arnold, who admittedly has been better this year than I thought he would be. And, I know that they lost this game this weekend, but I do think that that's what I want to see the most is can they run it effectively? Because against Oklahoma, against that really good front, certainly wasn't their strength.
Well, you already mentioned that Auburn is a 7.5 point dog. If they win, what went right?
I think the passing game. We saw Cam Coleman kind of break out a little bit for the first time this year. Last week, I think he can have another big game. Eric Singleton. When those two, Singleton and Coleman, have a big game at the same time, Auburn might score 75. They haven't quite yet because of how hard it is to do that with 2 different guys, but that passing attack needs to be set up by the running game to TJ's point. But if that passing attack is on point against the secondary for A&M that seems gettable to this point, then Auburn's got a pretty good chance.
TJ, reverse question for you. Texas A&M favored by more than a touchdown. If they win, what were they able to do?
Yeah, I think they were able to explosive plays were big. Like their wide receivers are so good, and whether it's Craver or Concepcion, that is something that Oklahoma was not able to be in. Like, they were more methodical, and obviously where they didn't score a ton of points. But I do think that Auburn really needs to be careful defensively of giving up those explosive plays because Reed hasn't been the most accurate. He's not. Think about that Notre Dame game. He had to throw the ball a billion times, but they hit a few explosives and that was enough. And, they kind of won a shootout. So to me, Auburn really has to not get beat deep, like make Reed drive. If he can drive 12, 14 plus play drives and beat you, then I think you tip your cap and you say, okay, good job. But if they're able to get some explosives off at home in that environment, the crowd's even more into it, makes it tougher on Arnold, puts more pressure on him. They're not able to run the ball as effectively. Or as much because they're trailing. I think explosive plays are a big key to this one.
Okay, well, give me your prediction.
I think Auburn goes in there pissed off and gets a big win. I mean, I am worried about A&M's receivers against Auburn's secondary, but I think Auburn is really going to come into this game angry. They know that the game against Oklahoma, they slipped away. I think they compete and fight. I think there's a lot of points scored in this game too. I want Auburn outright 31-24.
All right, TJ?
I'll go the other way. I'll say A&M gets it done at home, but I have zero confidence in this. Yeah, I'll go 31-30, super close.
Okay, so I got a lot more points than both of you. I say Texas A&M 49-42. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one. And this is one I have circled on my calendar. I think will be fun. Florida has a bye. I will be sitting on my couch, soaking it all in. But this is not the only good game that is happening this weekend. There is a lot of them, a whole list. But right now we're going to talk about LSU, Ole Miss. I love this game. I'm so interested to see what Lane Kiffin can do in a big time game with a really highly ranked opponent that I think maybe is ranked a tick too high from where they should be just based on Florida's experience with them. But there's kind of a quarterback controversy brewing in at Ole Miss. There's lots of storylines to this one. What are you most interested in seeing, Will?
I'm interested in seeing Trinidad Chambliss keep running that offense for Ole Miss because he has looked really, really good. Austin Simmons was struggling a lot, which made sense because he was so young, being kind of thrown into the fire. He's obviously banged up now, but Chambliss has looked awesome. 307 through the air, 112 on the ground versus Tulane, 353 in the air, and 62 on the ground versus Arkansas. Like, he has this offense clicking at the gear that we're used to seeing a Lane Kiffin offense click. Great success rate on offense, passing explosives, great points per opportunity. Like, Ole Miss has looked really, really good on offense with Chambliss. Defensively, they look like an Ole Miss defense, right? They lost a lot of people off their defensive front from last year. They looked a little bit soft, but in this matchup, LSU's run game is bad, and Ole Miss's run defense is bad. So you have a stoppable force meeting a very, very movable object. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen from that point of view. But LSU's offense had a bit of a spark against Southeast Louisiana last week, but they finally looked a little bit alive. So I think this could be another really high-scoring game. But you said quarterback controversy. I don't even know if it should be a controversy. I think Chambliss is way beyond where Simmons is at right now.
Yeah. I don't think it should be a controversy at all, but also we know I'm not an Austin Simmons fan, so who knows? This game is in Death Valley, right?
This is in Oxford.
It's in Oxford. Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I was thinking it was in Death Valley. Okay, so Ole Miss has home field advantage. I don't know that I think Oxford is as big an advantage as Death Valley. I don't think anything's as big as an advantage as Death Valley. Garrett Nussmeier has been good, but not great this season. What does he need to do in this one? Just not turn the ball over? I mean, we already talked about that Ole Miss doesn't have a great defense. What are the keys to victory for LSU, TJ?
Yeah, I mean, you'd hope they figured out something. I mean, they play the school of death. They played an absolute nobody this week, and their offense looked good in doing it. But you kind of wonder how much that holds up. Not that Ole Miss is like known for having an elite defense, but the way they were able to hold Tulane down, and I get it, it's Tulane, but Tulane looked really good to start the year. They beat Duke and, a transitive property the hell out of this, but Duke beat NC State this week. Like Duke has looked good at times too, scored a decent amount on Illinois, who I know again got blown out last week. So as we're trying to figure out like, okay, well, who do they play and how have they performed so far? I do have some confidence that LSU's offense can score okay, but I don't know that one performance against a bad team or an overmatched team, maybe I won't call them bad, is enough to think that, okay, well, now everything's fixed. Like your 3 weeks of being bad or all of a sudden just fixed because you played one bad team. I have similar thoughts on Texas, right? Their test is going to be in the swamp, not when they play Sam Houston State. So I would think that LSU has figured some things out, and it's certainly good to get a little bit of a monkey off your back no matter who the opponent is. But I'm not, I mean, I have more confidence in Ole Miss's offense right now. Saying that, I do have a lot of confidence in LSU's defense, and I don't think Ole Miss goes for 40 again, right? Because they're going to be playing one of the best defenses in the conference. So I think stylistically they match up pretty well, and it's just whose offense can get a little bit more of an edge. I like LSU's defense more. I might like Ole Miss's offense at this point a little bit more, even with the backup playing, which, I mean, it's not even really fair to call him a backup with how he's played so far. But I do think that that's, the biggest thing that I'm looking for is, have they fixed it enough in, 13 days of just playing one bad opponent?
So you alluded to what was going to be my next question for Will, which is like, so Ole Miss wants this to be a shootout, and a shootout favors Ole Miss, correct?
I mean, I think it definitely does, because they're the team that's proven like, hey, we can score 60 on anybody. And LSU is not. So if it does get into that back and forth, fast pace up and down the field, it definitely favors the Rebels. But I looked to this game last year. Granted, it was in Death Valley, so the difference in scenery is significant. But they scored 26 on LSU last year with Jackson Dart at quarterback, Trey Harris at receiver, a lot of other talent that's no longer there. Do we really think that Chambliss is as good as Dart was? Do we think that Harrison Wallace is as good as Trey Harris was? And LSU's defense is much better this year than it was last year. So I kind of look at that data point from last year and how Ole Miss's offense is good, probably a little less talented. LSU's defense is great and more talented. So I do like LSU's Ole Miss's offense, and I do think they'll be able to score a decent bit, but I don't think they're going to be able to make this a track meet because of how good LSU's defense is.
Yeah.
All right, Will, score prediction time. What you got for me?
I wish I could pick Ole Miss. I've got 35-28 LSU. I just think there's a good bit of points scored. I have it going over a little bit, but I think LSU is going to start to get it going. And like I just said, I'm not sure that Ole Miss can really get flying. I think they'll have a good day on offense, but not a great day, and they'll come up just one score short.
All right, TJ, what you got?
I'll go a little lower scoring, but I'm going to take LSU as well. I'll go 27-24. I have a little bit more confidence in LSU's defense. It's probably the unit that I'm most confident in of the four, if we ignore special teams. Sorry, Allie. But I do think that LSU's defense is probably what saves them here. So 27-24. But honestly, like an Ole Miss win where they do get it rolling, like wouldn't shock me at all. But I'll go with LSU, and I'll buy Nussmeier one more time before I blacklist him.
All right, well, we're all in agreement. I actually split the difference with you guys on the score. I wrote down 31-27 LSU. I do think this is a close one, and I think LSU's defense is able to come up with one more stop than Ole Miss's defense is able to. But again, another SEC battle that's going to be really fun on Saturday. A game that I look forward to every year, it happens on Saturday as well, and that's Georgia versus Alabama. This is a big game. This is a maybe it's taken a step back than in previous years, but you got to be excited about this one, right?
I definitely am. I mean, you have both teams who are fresh off a bye, and for Alabama, they've really come along since that FSU game when they absolutely demolished them. Granted, it's been against ULM and Wisconsin. Wisconsin isn't horrible; they're bad, but they're not horrible, and they dominated them. Yeah. The passing game looks really great. Ty Simpson looks confident. It seems like Jam Miller is probably not going to play, even though originally this was kind of the goal for him to be back. Sure. That's going to hurt a little bit because the run game for Bama hasn't really been there without him. I thought they had the depth to keep it running. They haven't to this point. And you cannot be one-dimensional against Georgia. And Georgia's offense had questions that were answered against Tennessee. Gunnar Stockton showed an explosive passing game. Those receivers showed a lot of downfield presence. So, granted, Tennessee was down both corners, but 40 plus on the road in Neyland in that environment is always going to be impressive. So, I'm a little worried about Bama being potentially one dimensional against a Georgia defense that will absolutely eat that up.
TJ, we know that this is not Nick Saban's Alabama, but how far would a victory against Georgia go in legitimizing Kalen DeBoer's Alabama?
Well, I mean, they got it last year, right? And Kirby obviously couldn't get the monkey off his back. They've won that one game in the national championship, but I think they've lost to him, 6 or 7 times. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that this is, I mean, we kind of look at Georgia as, I mean, not look at, they have the Vegas odds to go and win the SEC, right? So Georgia is kind of the team to beat right now.
Down year for Georgia.
Yeah. And so what they did on the road at Neyland, I mean, then you got to go into Athens. Yeah, this would be a huge win. And I mean, I'm not trying to, it's still really early and we'll see how Friday night goes, but I'm not sold on Florida State being some elite team, but they might be really good, right? Like they might, we'll see again when they play Virginia and then play Miami, but Alabama, that's still kind of I don't want to say unacceptable, but still a loss that they shouldn't have taken, even if Florida State is really good and they really shouldn't have gotten pushed around like they did. But if you go out and beat Georgia on the road, I think a lot of Bama fans probably expected to beat Florida State and probably lose to Georgia just because of who you're playing and where you're playing. If you can flip that and then Florida State keeps winning, like Florida State goes out and beats Miami in 2 weeks, I know Bama fans, I mean, they're still going to be annoyed because their expectation is perfection, but nobody's going to be annoyed anymore. You're going to say Florida State's a really good freaking team and we lost to them and they shocked us and we're undefeated since then. And Bama will be top 10 if they win this game. So yeah, this game would be huge for Alabama and Kalen DeBoer if they do it. My plan is Florida State plays on Friday night. My plan is to be there for this game on Saturday. We'll see how all of that works. But yeah, this would, I mean, it'll be massive for both teams. Cause I don't think Bama's terrible. So if Georgia gets this win, they're probably going back to Atlanta. So, all right, I need a drink. Now I'm getting choked up.
Well, just for the record, in 2 weeks, I'm rooting for the asteroid. But Will, if Alabama wins, what went right for them?
They were able to run the ball because if they only have to go through the air, Kirby Smart is going to he's going to love that if Bama's one dimensional. So Bama has to be able to have a balanced attack or else this Georgia defense, even though they struggled against Tennessee, I don't think Bama's passing offense is on the same level as the Vols, so they won't be able to really take the top off. And Bama's defense, they've been struggling with explosives containing them, so their defense needs to lock down a little bit more. So it's both running the ball and just keeping everything for Georgia in front of them on defense to make sure that they don't let Georgia get any quick hitters and really extend the lead.
TJ, talk about this game in context of importance for recruiting. I feel like Georgia and Alabama have sat at the top of the recruiting world for a decade or more. I mean, Alabama more than, and they recruit the same type of kids. I think we can talk about Ohio State being a recruiting juggernaut. Like you can throw, Michigan in there some years or what, but it's a different area of the country. Truly, Georgia and Alabama basically have their pick of the South. Maybe they lose some to Texas over there, which I don't really consider the South at all. What kind of momentum can be gained from that recruiting wise? There's going to be a lot of guys in attendance at this one.
Yeah, I think it's more of what could be, my take on it would be it's more of what could be lost. Like if Bama loses this one, I mean, both teams are going to recruit in the top 5. So it's not like, they both kind of have their pick of the litter when it comes to elite blue chip talent. But I do think that if Bama loses this one, and then you look at the rest of their schedule, they got to play Tennessee, they got to play Vandy, they got to play Oklahoma at some point. They got to play, or they already played Tennessee. Sorry. They got to play Oklahoma. They got to play, Vandy. They've got to play LSU. You start to think, well, is an 8-4 Bama pulling in as much talent as they, normally do? So I think Georgia will be fine either way. Maybe this flips one guy that's, between the two of them that they both are going after. They both just have such an embarrassment of riches when it comes to recruiting, though, that I don't think it has a major impact, but it could start to Bama goes out and gets physically dominated like they did in week 1. And basically you've beaten the 2 bad teams you played and you've gotten demolished by the 2 good teams you played. I do think that could start to, it could have bigger ramifications for Bama than anything else. Georgia could lose this game by 3 or 7 or whatever, and they're still going to do fine because they're going to rack up a lot of wins this year. So that's where I would kind of see the issue for anybody if it was present.
I think the interesting thing is that, yeah, they got demolished week 1, but they have the horses to run with anybody. This is a team that is a perennial top 5, sometimes top 3 recruiting program, and so it's almost a disappointment when you lose to a team who hasn't recruited at the same clip as you. But because they have that stable of athletes, the odds that this game is close are pretty high. Will, right? What's your score prediction?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty slow game because I think Georgia's going to relatively control both sides of the ball, given how Bama, I believe, is going to be one-dimensional, and how Georgia, when they want to be, they can really just lean on you with the running game. I've got like 27-17 Georgia. I think it'll be competitive the entire time. It's not going to be a runaway double-digit win for Georgia, but I do think they win this game by 10. I think they're just able to really lean on Bama the entire time. It just becomes too much for them.
Our scores are really close. We'll get to mine in a minute. TJ, what you got?
I'll take Georgia as well because it's at home. I would pick Bama if this was in Tuscaloosa, even though they did lose that game early in the year. I'll go 21-20. I'll say it's incredibly close. I think Bama has to settle for a couple of field goals. And yeah, I'll say Bama even has a lead at halftime in this thing. We're a little like double up on this, but Georgia just shows that knack of being able to come back. And so Georgia wins 21-20.
I don't think anybody makes halftime adjustments like Kirby Smart does, at least not that's active in football. I'm going to go 24-17 Bulldogs. But I agree. This is going to be this is going to be a close one, but it's going to not be a barn burner like some of the other ones. I think it's going to be a really close slugfest of a match. All right. Well, our next game that we are going to talk about is kind of exciting. So Tennessee, Mississippi State. Mississippi State is sitting at 4-0. The first time they've been 4-0 since I want to say 2014. Dan Mullen was the head coach there. Shockingly enough, they were able to get a new head coach within the last couple years and put together wins.
So petty.
Start 4-0. A 4-0 is a very difficult. 3-0 is hard too. 2-0 is even hard for some programs. But 4-0 is incredibly impressive. Tennessee lost that heartbreaker to Georgia. They really were maybe the better team throughout that game. Kirby Smart, like I said, there's nobody that I would take on game day that is actively coaching over Kirby Smart just consistently. But they need some SEC wins, right? They got their heart stomped on. This is a game that in the summer you would have circled and said is an easy win. Not so fast, my friend. What matchups are you watching in this one, Will?
I mean, I'm looking at Mississippi State's defense, right? And can they limit Tennessee's explosive passing game? Because they have a good success rate in passing downs. Does Mississippi State's defense a good havoc rate in their secondary and a good points per opportunity allowed? Now, Georgia also had very similar metrics in that when they went and played Tennessee, and Tennessee dropped 40 on them. Even the losing effort, but they still played really, really good. But Tennessee's offense obviously grades out very well. Aguilar is going to have those explosive plays. He's going to put up good numbers. Does he also throw one or two away like he did against Georgia? Because that's my biggest worry with him is, sure, he'll throw for 320. Does he also have 2 picks mixed in there that Mississippi State is able to capitalize on? And just going back to when Arizona State went to Starkville, they held Sam Leavitt to below 50% passing, only 82 yards and 2 picks. They dealt with a great power running game, but because of what they were able to do to Arizona State in the air, they were able to win that game. Now, Tennessee's offense is a notch above Arizona State talent-wise, obviously, but there's same styles and makeup where they have a power rushing attack to try and set up explosive passing plays. Mississippi State has already stopped an offense who wants to do that. Now, can they do it with a level up of an offense from a talent profile and try and keep themselves in this game?
TJ, Tennessee has some injuries in the secondary. That'll be something that we watch as well. But this game is in Neyland Stadium. That is a huge home field advantage. It feels like everything needs to go right.
No. Is it?
Is it? Oh, it's in
I think it's on the road. It's on the road. So this is Cowbell City.
Okay, well, clearly everything I looked up this morning was incorrect because this is the second time. Perfect. Starkville. That's great for Mississippi State. But the point remains is that the matchup is that Mississippi State's going to have to play very good football to have a shot in this one. But is there a possibility of Tennessee looking ahead? Like, could this be a trap game, or because Mississippi State's 4-0, that's not going to happen? They are now awake and paying attention to this opponent.
Yeah, I don't think they'll look ahead. At least I would hope that they don't, considering what happened last year on the road at Arkansas, coming off a big win. And I do think that maybe losing to Georgia maybe refocuses you a little bit and understanding how good you were and how close you were in that game. I don't think they'll look ahead. I think they'll take it seriously, and the fact that they're 4-0, what are they? Are they just barely ranked? Are they right outside the top 25 like others receiving votes? I think they're one of those two. So nearly a ranked matchup. To me, no, I don't think they'll look ahead. I think they'll be pretty locked in. But I'll tell you, their wide receivers need to go make and Joey was good for most of the game. Their wide receivers made some spectacular plays in that game against Georgia that had they not made them, Georgia wouldn't have really needed to come back. Like there were some kind of highlight type plays that it's easy. I don't want to say it's easier to do that maybe at home. It's easier to do that when you're up for a big game. Are his wide receivers going to bail him out on the road in Starkville? If they do, then they'll probably win this game comfortably going away. But if they don't, this could be a little bit closer if Tennessee's not able to just kind of get that down and, just kind of the normal type plays, the regular type non-highlight plays. That's where I think that this game could kind of get out of control or out of hand if you're Mississippi State. But and that's more of like what Tennessee's able to do because they're athletes and they are really good. So that is something that I'm looking for. I know that's not really what your question was, but something I thought of within doing this is Tennessee kind of saved themselves a couple of times by doing some things that were ridiculous offensively. If they don't have that same kind of output of just, going up and mossing guys, this game could be a lot closer than I think Vols fans want it to be.
Mississippi State is just outside the top 25. I looked that up. Will, are they the best not ranked 4-0 team in college football?
I think they're definitely one of them. I mean, they have a good case to be ranked, obviously, because of the AP poll just clearly only factoring in preseason expectations they're not going to be. But I think they definitely could be because I'm looking at Blake Shapen. I think I rated him as my worst SEC quarterback over the summer. Totally wrong. Totally wrong. This passing offense has looked pretty good. And going up against a Tennessee secondary who's
might be my worst.
But going up against a Tennessee secondary who's still beat up, because I don't think we know the status yet of Ricky Gibson or Jermod McCoy, the two starting corners. Like, UAB last week in Neyland threw the ball around. Jalen Kitna, familiar name for Florida fans, had over 300 yards throwing against this Tennessee secondary. So with Mississippi State looking as good as they have passing the ball, they could throw around Tennessee too. And then being at home, there's a lot of potential for Mississippi State to be able to throw the ball around a lot.
TJ, I've asked Will first on our other picks, so I'm going to give you the floor right now. What is your prediction for the Tennessee-Mississippi State game?
Yeah, I think they're an 8.5-point favorite on the road right now. I do think they cover that. I would love to see. I like upsets. I like exciting stuff, but I would struggle to see Mississippi State without Tennessee kind of handing them this game. I'd struggle to see them getting it done. I'll go 30-20. Tennessee beats Mississippi State.
All right, Will, what you got?
I like Mississippi State a lot. They're a great story. I don't think they're this good, and I don't see Tennessee starting off 0-2 in conference. I respect State enough to cover this 8.5 at home. The line's already down to 7.5, even though I think 90% of slips are on Tennessee. So I do think Mississippi State will be able to cover this. I got 38-31 Tennessee, high scoring game. Tennessee's firepower is just a little too much for the Bulldogs.
All right. Well, I have 31-24 Tennessee as well. So we shall see. This is an awesome slate of SEC games. And we've also got some exciting things happening this week, as in the release of the permanent opponents when when the SEC goes to a 9-game schedule. None of this is official, but it has been put out by On3. So we're going to say it's unofficially official and give them credit and or blame if we are wrong. But I kind of disappointed in how this shook out for my team personally, but let's go down the list. All right. So Alabama has Auburn, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. I think Auburn and Tennessee are no-brainers there. Is anybody surprised by the Mississippi State?
I mean, I don't think I hate it because I remember they had some pretty good games back when Dak was at State. That was actually a bit of a rivalry when State was good, so I don't hate that. I'm not necessarily sure who I would have rather seen for Alabama because obviously with this sort of format, people are going to get left off of other teams' lists. Right. So I'm not overly shocked by it, but it won't be a big high-profile matchup every year, you wouldn't think.
All right, Missouri. They've got Arkansas, A&M, and Oklahoma. I feel like all of those make sense from a geographical standpoint. And I mean, they're not a team that has been in the SEC all that long. I guess, 15 years at this point. And I mean, that probably tracks, right, TJ?
Yeah, I froze for a second, so that might be on me.
Okay. I was just asking you, Missouri, Arkansas, A&M, and Oklahoma. Those track, right?
Yeah, I think they make sense. I would have loved to see A&M in this, but I understand with the rivalry, just because they came over at the same time, that would have been the one that I would have
A&M is on this list. Arkansas, A&M, and Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm an idiot. I can't
That's
hear.
okay.
But yeah, I like this. I like this for them.
Arkansas has Missouri, Texas, which I'm pretty sure Texas and Arkansas is an original.
I like this one.
Rivalry. And then LSU, which also is another one of Arkansas's actual traditional opponents. Will, you good with that one?
Yeah, Arkansas looks good. I think Arkansas and Missouri, they pretty much nailed.
Yeah. Oklahoma's got Missouri, Ole Miss, Texas. I obviously Oklahoma, Texas makes perfect sense. Missouri, because of geographical, I think that tracks. What about Oklahoma, Ole Miss though?
It just doesn't do anything for me at all.
Yeah.
Although I like so I will say this. I like the contrasting styles of offense and defense here. So maybe that's fun. But I mean, how long are these coaches going to both be,
We're hoping Ole Miss has a different coach next year.
But yeah, this does nothing for me. This feels like a weird one where you just needed an extra team, and so that's what you threw in.
Auburn up next, Alabama and Georgia. I think we could have picked those absolutely. And Vandy is their last one, which I guess, if you're getting Alabama and Georgia, you kind of want a bone, but I don't know if Clark Lee's Vanderbilt is the bone that they were thinking when they made this schedule.
Yeah, from where I'm sitting, I would have loved to see Auburn LSU be a protected game, but to your point, if Auburn got Bama, Georgia, and LSU as annual opponents, that would not be fair. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, some of these, not on this one specifically, but some of these are very much just like, okay, we got to give them a bad opponent too, And
that's how I feel about Florida's, which we will be getting to in a moment. Let's look at Ole Miss, Mississippi State, which that's a no-brainer. That's your in-state, rival. LSU and Oklahoma. This is that's a pretty great slate for them, right? I don't love the Oklahoma Ole Miss, but I love the LSU and the Mississippi State.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I mean, I think to TJ's point about Oklahoma, Ole Miss being, chess versus checkers is pretty interesting.
Okay, so Florida. This one I don't love.
I think Florida sucks, if I'm being honest.
Florida, Georgia, that's a smart one. But South Carolina and Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee not being a protected one with the rivalry that has been over the last, 50 years disappoints me. I understand you couldn't have Georgia, Tennessee, and LSU. That would be a hell of a gauntlet. But if I got to pick, that would be the three that I, as a Florida fan, care the absolute most about. Maybe then Kentucky, and then after that, South Carolina. So I just don't think that I don't know. I don't love this for Florida.
I think for Florida, maybe I should let Will go first here, being the Florida fan, but I do think for Florida, the alternatives were to make theirs incredibly difficult. So I'm not trying to make you love it or whatever, because I hate it for UF too. But what do you want to add? Do you want to take South Carolina, Kentucky off and add it with Tennessee? Do you want to take
South Carolina off and add Tennessee? Yes.
Yeah, South Carolina off and add LSU, which would have been a fun one. But exactly. I don't know, man. I think they wanted the schedule balancing. I think it actually works out really well for Florida from a scheduling standpoint. Florida is easy to me. It's just not fun. Not easy. Georgia's still there for sure, but it's easier than it could have been. Tennessee LSU is much more difficult. Yeah. So Florida should have. Just being honest, sorry, Beamer and Stoops, but Florida should have 2 wins every year with these annual opponents.
Well, what you think?
Yeah, competitively, this is a major upgrade from what Florida's been playing the past few years. But obviously, entertainment-wise, no Tennessee every year hurts, no LSU every year hurts. I knew it was a long shot. I was kind of hoping they might throw Florida Auburn, because that used to be a good rivalry that just hasn't happened. But yes, I think both points are true where you're losing some big traditional games they're going to be missed, but at the same time, if they gave Florida, Georgia, LSU, and Tennessee, people would be in an outrage saying Florida can't catch a break. It's all these tough teams. So I do think it's a decent balance, but I think to your point, Allie, taking out Carolina and putting in the Vols would probably be a nice middle.
How about this?
Go ahead.
The other thing that is nice, and this applies to everybody, not just Florida. What is nice is the way they're doing the scheduling is I would imagine you're going to play Tennessee every other year, and you're going to play Tennessee or LSU every year. Like now that's not guaranteed or anything like that,
Sure.
but it is nice the way they're rotating it to where you're going to play people every other year, and that's kind of nice, right? Like you're going to
Somehow when they
play
start
more
that,
people more
Florida will
often.
start with Texas A&M at Kyle Field. That is just
I hope it's game one of whatever season this is, 26. I hope it's the opening weekend.
I probably will be. All right, let's move on to South Carolina. They got Georgia, Florida, and Kentucky. That's a decently hard schedule for them. They've got both Florida and Georgia. Kentucky, obviously, they should beat, but they don't necessarily every year. So South Carolina got a hard draw there. Will.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not overly moved by any of those games, but I can't really name many South Carolina rivalries where it's like back and forth every year, blood everywhere. Like South Carolina, it's fine. But yeah, I did not the easiest draw for the Gamecocks, but there should be some decently competitive games.
I did have a thought that I wonder if when they took these things into consideration, like Florida's, like South Carolina's, are they factoring in the fact that they have an in-state opponent who is out of conference, who is generally good every single year? Florida will continue to play Florida State every year. It's mandated in the state of Florida. Florida State is good. That's going to make the schedule already a tick harder than some of these other schools that don't have an in-state opponent that is out of conference. And it's the same thing for South Carolina with Clemson. So
Kentucky, yeah. Kentucky too. Kentucky has Florida and South Carolina here with Louisville. And I mean, Georgia has South Carolina and Florida too. So they all have a couple of them. All four of them have two. Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I do find that interesting. Move on to Georgia.
One more thing on South Carolina. I would have rather seen Missouri on theirs. I think the South Carolina, Missouri, and I know that game just happened this weekend, that rivalry has been a lot of fun over the year. And like Will was talking and I was trying to rack my brain, like, yeah, who are South Carolina's rivals? And I actually think back to like Spurrier and Muschamp being at both of them and thinking that was kind of fun. But South Carolina, Missouri was one that I thought would be a little bit surprising, I guess, that it's not there.
Yeah. Georgia drew Auburn, Florida, and South Carolina. I think the Georgia Auburn makes perfect sense. I guess they couldn't really do Georgia. I mean, they couldn't do Auburn, Florida, and Alabama, which would probably be what Georgia fans would want if they're talking about their top three rivals. So they threw South Carolina in there. But there have been some interesting Georgia-South Carolina games over the years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the one team missing off is also probably Tennessee. But to the same point, you can't give all these teams their three biggest rivals who are always top 15 teams because that's just
and there's some overlap between them too. And so it is impossible, but I don't have to like it. Tennessee got Alabama, which that's the third week of October special, right? That any of us that have been watching the SEC for a long time know that is an important weekend for both those schools. And then they got Kentucky and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt makes sense because I think that's who we bill as their in-state rival, although I don't know that rival is really a fair thing to call that matchup. But they play it the last weekend of the college football season as though it is a rivalry. And then they got Kentucky. Tennessee fans probably aren't pumped about this one.
I actually think they nailed it. I think this is a pretty good teams, three pretty good matchups against teams that I'd be willing to say are rivals for Tennessee. Like, I mean, sure, Kentucky and Vanderbilt in theory is kind of a boring pair of games, but I think tradition-wise they actually did a really good job with Tennessee's.
Yeah.
The only thing I would have added would be the Florida game. To me, the Florida Tennessee not happening is big.
That's
fun. But all right, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina. From a Kentucky standpoint, I feel like they kind of nailed theirs.
Mm-hmm. I think I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, Florida and Tennessee is not the easiest 1-2. South Carolina's up and down, but I mean, it's Kentucky, so I think they did a good job.
Yeah, do something and then we'll adjust yours.
Texas has A&M, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. Again, this is not a traditional SEC school, so you're kind of, looking around here. A&M was a rival from an in-state rival, but also a previous conference rival. That tracks. Oklahoma, obviously, same reason, and then Arkansas, for geography's sake, I think makes perfect sense. And I like that they weren't trying to create a rivalry where there isn't one, like giving Texas, Georgia, or Texas, Alabama would have been great for TV ratings, but there is no historical context for it. So I do kind of like that they were true to rivalries when they determine these, as opposed to just what would be great ratings.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Texas didn't really get stuck with I think I would say like not a perennial power in the league. Like A&M's always good. Oklahoma's rising, but didn't get stuck with a perennial power, but they're obviously going to play them every other year. So I think you're totally right. I think they did a good job with the annual opponents being regional and traditional, but yeah, everything else is going to get mixed in.
I wonder if Texas fans are like, damn, we left the Big 12 on purpose. And now here we are playing the Big 12 within the SEC. All right, LSU. We've talked about this with the other matchups that they're in, but LSU has Arkansas, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. These are also traditional rivalries, but there's nothing in that like really floors me.
I can't believe Bama's not on here. And I know that Bama already has, but
the amount of good LSU, the games we've seen over the last 25 years.
When I think about, when the Bama rivalry started, so like 04, 05, and then obviously Saban moved over, like when I think about the best games in the SEC for the last 20 years, the ones that come to my mind, and I know there's been good stuff outside of this, but it's LSU, Alabama, and it is that rivalry. That is what for the
West for a decade.
And the East was very down for a long time. I know Florida, mid to late 2000s was really good, but when the East was so down, it was who wins the Alabama, and more times than not, it was Alabama, but it was who wins the Alabama LSU game that is going to go win the conference.
For a national championship after we saw it for an SEC championship.
That is probably the most disappointing thing to me of the entire schedule release. It's the fact that we won't get Alabama LSU every year. I can live with Florida, and I know you guys are Florida fans, but I can live without Florida, Tennessee, because that just hasn't been a nationally relevant rivalry for a while. I can live without, Georgia, Auburn, or no, that is happening. Sorry. I can live without some of the other stuff that's not on here. Alabama, LSU not being on here to me. And again, maybe they just couldn't make it work, but that one sucks to not have.
Yeah, I agree. Texas A&M has LSU, Missouri, Texas. Again, those all make sense. That LSU, Texas A&M rivalry, it predates, the SEC conference. What are our thoughts on that? They hit that one pretty much.
I think I like A&M's. I wish that they had put Arkansas on there because I love that Jerry World game. But those will have it every now and then, obviously. But I do think that they did a good job with A&M's 3.
Mississippi State's got Ole Miss. You could call that one Vandy. So they just decided to put the worst two teams in the conference together. And then Mississippi State has Alabama. Outside of the in-state rivals, I don't know that this one does literally anything for me. But I don't know that there's a whole lot Mississippi State does that really does anything for me. So.
No. Yeah, you're totally right.
And then Vanderbilt, Auburn, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. We already talked about why I think Mississippi State is paired with Vanderbilt. That Tennessee-Vanderbilt is that in-state rivalry. And then they've got Auburn, which I do find that interesting. Auburn's probably happy that it's
regionality. Is that the only thing?
It's gotta be.
I was gonna say, isn't that like totally random? I just want to make sure I wasn't outdated by a rivalry or anything, but that does feel weird.
Yeah. I don't know that I love this. Although I don't know that I wanted the job of figuring out who got each team because I think I'd have like 6 teams with incredible stack schedules and then the rest of the conference with games that make no sense, but it's just where I stuck them because I picked the games I wanted to see. So I don't envy this at all. This will get released officially later in the week. So if it ends up being completely wrong,
blame on 3. No, I love this. I don't care about the SEC. I don't care about ESPN. I don't they hype up these announcements so that we have to tune into a show. And now I don't love people that leak draft picks right before they have but this is different to me. Yeah. I love that Chris Lowe did this. This is so good to scoop them. And people in those SEC and ESPN offices have to just be livid So I'm all for the petty. So I love that he did this. I'm sure it's right. If not, maybe Alabama LSU does find its way on here, but I do trust him a ton. A guy that literally worked for ESPN 3 weeks ago. I love this. So shout out to Chris Lowe and
We just saved
Shannon
an
Perry
hour
for
of their
grabbing
life
him.
too.
Say that again.
I said we just saved everybody an hour of their life too. I feel like every time these announcements come on,
I'm not watching that now.
It's during my kids' bedtime and bath time, and I'm trying to watch on my phone and pay attention, but also like read the story, do all the things. So like,
and the timing was great. Chris must have known that we were live right now, and he didn't want us to have to get back together on Tuesday night to talk about it. So this was great timing by him.
Yeah, I shout out Chris Lowe for helping us out here. All right, guys, this was fun. We do this every single Monday live at 10 a.m. If you missed it, no worries. You're going to be able to watch each of these recaps and previews, and of course, the unveiling of the new SEC schedule live and up on our channel in the coming hours and days. But guys, this was fun. We will do it again next Monday morning. We'll let everybody know where they can follow you on social media and check out your work.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at WThomasSport and Tailgate Talk SEC just about everywhere else. And just for a quick pity party, I've got to go to a dumb wedding this weekend, so I'm going to be trying to watch all these games on my phone through a tux. So I'll be trying my best. But
I mean, at least Florida's on a bye. But
I wish, you know what? I wish they were playing. I wish they were playing
It's
on
less
that
painful.
I just say no to fall weddings. We get 12 Saturdays out of the year. Pick a different day if you love us.
I mean, come on, it's ridiculous. But
Well,
I guess I'll just go be a good groomsman. It's fine.
all right, go be a good groomsman. At least hopefully there's good bourbon there. TJ, let everybody know where they can check you out.
Yeah, TJ_Pittinger on X. Come hang out.
All right. And Allie_Peak. And make sure you are subscribed to A Peek Inside SEC Football so you don't miss anything. We'll see you guys next week.